This is the Business Owners IT Podcast with Anthony Gerasch and Ryan Carter, where tomorrow's technology meets today's conversations.
Hi, I'm Tony Gerasch.
And I'm Ryan Carter, and this is the Business Owners IT Podcast.
A podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and solutions for business owners involving all things tech.
SharePoint migrations. You know what? I've done quite a few of these, and I've always done them like on a smaller scale. Just a few files here and there. Create a site, get some stuff up there. I did a bigger one back in the day, but might have been 250 to 500 gigabits. But Tony here has been doing one that is a fairly large migration with a lot of file names, and there's got to be some trials and tribulations. And I just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah. So so in order to use AI, in order to create your own apps, if you want, per se, the data's got to be in the cloud. So we're in the process of a very large migration from on-premise servers to SharePoint, and we're just finding that. And then with SharePoint, there's a thing called the OneDrive sync, and where you can actually use File Explorer, Windows Explorer, File Explorer, whatever it's called, to be able to see your files and use them just like you did when you had an on-premise server. And and we have a lot of people that don't want to go down the route of using SharePoint Online, because really on SharePoint Online you can do everything. It's a different workflow, but you can do everything the same. The same workflow exists online versus, inside of File Explorer. But what we're finding is that very large SharePoint libraries cause these sync storms and use tons of memory and tons of processor, and it's been a little struggle to get where we want to go. Getting users to buy in is also a problem. Why are we doing this type of thing? But having said that, at some point, most data is going to be in the cloud, and SharePoint's a great way to do it. So what we're finding is, we're just going to have to pare it down. We're talking about millions of files, right? And the files may not be huge. It could be a million Word docs that are, 40 megabytes, 50 megabytes.
Well, didn't you have to clean them up too somehow?
Yeah, we had to go through a scrubbing process to get rid of, because this was an old company. We had Harvard Graphics, we had Quattro Pro, we had Lotus 1, 2, 3. I'm showing my age because I used all these. We had WordPerfect. We had the Microsoft version of before Word was, I don't know what it was. But we had lots of stuff, right? Lots of files that were old files. Lots of files that, just had random extensions. So scrubbing the data is also a big process. But, in order to use some of the AI stuff like Copilot and stuff where you could start tagging documents and working different way, you got to go to SharePoint or something like it. So, we're in the middle of the migration. We have some unhappy people. I tell them to leave their computers on, and then Monday morning they come in and they insist on using the OneDrive sync, and they have these long sync processes. But we've been doing it quite a long time, right? It eats up a lot of RAM. But it's
So is there any like hindsight, like, oh, I wish I would have done this differently, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, hindsight. I wish I would have just told them, hey, you know what? We're not. There's no way to do, or we shouldn't use the OneDrive sync. That we should just, make everybody use SharePoint. Just use it online, because you can do everything online. You can create documents. You can move documents. You can combine PDFs in Bluebeam or Adobe. You can do everything that you would do in File Explorer online the same way. And by the way, the search functionality and the indexing in SharePoint is phenomenal. I mean, you could find stuff, using your Copilot and all this other stuff. You can find it like immediately.
Well, that's what makes it night and day too. Like when you're trying to do something with like a local file and say an AI tool, it's so much different than when you connect it into SharePoint and get all that extra metadata there. I mean, there's so much you could do with. I mean, we got our guys upstairs are doing stuff with tagging and stuff like that to make it easier to find files and make them the right file for what they're doing it for, and to create
You can also add automation, right? So when something happens in inside of there's a tools that add automation to have stuff happen.
Yeah.
And the automate using the when you put stuff there.
Change this document. Go
Right.
put this over in that document from
Yeah.
that change. Yeah.
So we've done a lot of the SharePoint migrations, but never as many files as we're dealing with here. So it's hindsight 2020. I would say, hey, we're just going to try to use it online. I probably would also trim down the amount of files that we move and maybe make more libraries to help do that. I mean, we're probably going to end up having to move stuff out in libraries, but this is just an old company that has a lot of data.
Well, see, and that's the thing too, is there's a lot of old companies out there with a lot of data, and that's why I wanted to bring this up too. That has tons of data that they don't want to get rid of because it's still useful for them in their day-to-day business.
Yeah.
And I want to bring this up is because they're going to start wanting to do these things too. Because in a previous episode, I had talked about that we're going forward is you have to do something to adopt an AI tool or something along those lines to help drive your business. And this is where you're going to want to go. So we're going to start seeing a lot more businesses reach out and say, hey, what do we do? Now we've got our hindsights, our gotchas, and what we can do to help them get it done quicker, faster, or just more efficient for them. So that's why I wanted to bring this up in this episode that we know you're going to have to do it.
Yeah, at some point, right? Yeah, and actually, SharePoint's been around a long time. You can, years ago, you could buy SharePoint online. You could buy it as a software, and you'd install it on a server.
Mm-hmm.
So, now it's online, but it's been around, and it's it doesn't make sense not to adopt it too, because with your Microsoft license, I think you get 1 terabyte of SharePoint, and then each user gets 1 terabyte of storage for their own personal stuff to OneDrive. Now OneDrive and for your personal stuff, hey, that's awesome inside of File Explorer. You could just put it in there and that's that. But when you get into, big file sets and everybody's, people are doing stuff and trying to share stuff and they're waiting for it to sync because they refuse to do it online, that becomes, hey, this is an IT issue. My computer's not fast enough, or it's all this. But really, it's just, there's just not enough bandwidth and stuff to get everything synced because, you have these sync storms going on as you keep adding files.
Now, there is a box you can check to turn off the sync. in SharePoint Online for everybody. Do not allow OneDrive sync.
Yeah. Well, we might have to do that.
So just
maybe in the future, that's what I'll do.
Let you know for future meetings.
Yeah, maybe in the future, that's what I'll do. I'll say, hey, don't allow OneDrive sync, and then I'll say, hey, it's just not available. Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Or I tell management it's available. We don't want to do this. But, it's, there's some companies, especially like engineering companies and manufacturing companies and distributing companies that have a lot of data and they've been in business a long time, and sometimes they want to go find that data and use it. And the beautiful thing about SharePoint is now they can find it a lot faster. Hey, can you find this subdivision or this project number, or and it'll just boom, bring it up. It searches inside the documents. It does everything.
And that's one thing they need to know too, because everyone gets so used to the file structures of their old file system that you're just used to it and you know where to find things. So that's why you do it, because back in the day, Windows File Explorer to search a file server, get out of here.
Yeah, and it's probably not there. I think most tech guys that have been around will say, you want to abandon your old file structure when you go to SharePoint, but these guys ain't going to abandon their file structure. I'm just sorry, they're just not going to do it.
No, they want to
going forward. If it's a brand new company or something, yeah, you can do more to abandon the old file structure and use use the search functionality to find the stuff.
Yeah, yep. Unstructured data is a little easier to find them.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff you can do too with SharePoint, like tagging, photo tagging. You can there's just tons of stuff you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it does make it easier, and it's easier to back up.
Yeah, yep. So if you guys are thinking about out there and you have some old servers, and I was at a place today on a sales call. They have 2019, 2016 servers. It's like, do you want to move all this data to the cloud, or do you want to buy another server? If you're faced in that circumstance, I would really look at it. I would really look close at saying, hey, can we move our data not need on-premise servers. So
I'm having that conversation a lot too myself.
Yeah, and I think you're running into, and not to get off the topic here about it, but you're also running into where, these servers are starting to cost, $20,000, $25,000, for licensing and software. It's like the prices have just been going up and up and up. I mean, I remember when I used to say $5,000 for a server was expensive.
Yeah.
And they're hard to get.
Yeah, every quote we get goes higher. Obviously, we're having the RAM shortage or whatever that is right now, and it's just, and I mean, every quote I get, it's not a few dollars either. It's $1,000 more every single one.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing that I found, right? So as we're going through this, right, and I have these computers that are, they have a lot of memory. So we have, basically laptops with i7 processors, probably 512 or 1 terabyte solid state drives and 16 gig of RAM. Well, we're finding that, 90% of the CPU is being used and 90% of the RAM is being used during these file syncs, which then gives you all these other problems.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I said to my tech, hey, let's just buy some more RAM. Well, I found out, miraculous to me, that RAM is now being soldered in. You can't get upgrades.
What?
So you cannot get it. Yeah, you didn't know? Yeah. So
were you buying this from Apple?
No. So Dell, the 7400 laptop was the last time in the 7400 series that you could get the thing. Now all the chips are soldered in.
No.
So yes, they are. Absolutely, they are. So now I have all these ones with 16 that I'd like to update to 32, but I can't add RAM to them. He doesn't believe me. You want me to get Jillian down here?
Well, I'm just thinking, I just don't understand.
I didn't believe it
but
either.
I guess, what is that, to make a smaller chassis maybe, I guess?
Make them lighter? I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So maybe, I don't know. Maybe, maybe Philip could help us and start soldering some chips onto the...
He's a programmer, bro. He's a programmer.
Solder some 32 gig chips onto
Oh my gosh.
thing.
Think of doing
I wonder if you could solder.
Like,
I wonder if it has more than one bank. Okay, we're getting off topic.
Have you ever seen all the pins on the new, the bigger, DDR5s and stuff like that?
Ryan, I'm going to have to freeze frame with that image. You made the perfect Robert De Niro face when you got the reaction from the RAM is now soldered in. The perfect Robert De Niro face. It was just like...
Eat your heart out, De Niro. Eat your heart out.
Yeah, I'm like, so now I got all these computers that don't have enough RAM. So, anyways.
Quick tip of the week. We're going to go back on topic just so that we can knock this one out. If you are planning on an AI development, especially when you're going to use your files, which 9 times out of 10 you will, think about what you move into SharePoint. And if you have a lot of files, we've kind of learned along the way, just hit us with a comment and we'll help you out along the way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you could have 100,000 files, but only be using, not very much, not very much storage, right?
Yeah.
But the little files, they just, it just creates headache. All right. I guess another thing I ran into, not to get off topic, but I ran into the long paths. So you guys got to be careful with your pathing too. So we had a lot of problems with paths.
Oh, long pathing.
Long pathing when you're trying to move from your on-premise server to the thing. So that's another big issue.
Yep. So if you are going to move, you might want to think about changing your file structure. I know some of us old guys don't want to do it, but you might have to think about it. All right.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and hope to see you soon.
See you in a couple weeks. Bye.
Unique Computing Solutions. Your IT challenges solved.